The book is called Dying to Live. It's a look at how near-death experiences can transform our faith. And it's written by Father Nigel Mumford. Andy Fox visited with Father Mumford, who recounted his journey through the valley of the shadow of death and the visions he said he experienced while in a 3-week coma.
Here at Galilee Church in Virginia Beach, Father Nigel Mumford has written a book, Dying to Live, how he went to death's door and came back. The Flatline, the sound of death. And Father Nigel Mumford was at that door in October 2009.
That night, I was not expected to live.
This former British Royal Marine Commando, a Green Beret, a former drill instructor in the battle for his life. It began with a persistent hacking cough so severe he couldn't sleep or eat. Doctors placed Mumford in a medically induced coma for 3 weeks. Turned out to be H1N1 swine flu. His wife Lynn by his side. 72 straight days.
So I've known physical pain in combat, emotional pain in combat, emotional pain for my boys who got killed. But the physical pain of this chronic disease of swine flu was horrific.
Father Mumford writes about life and death in Dying to Live and what he experienced in his subconscious while in a coma thinking he was dead.
It was all to do with death. It was all to do with healing.
He couldn't hear anything, but he knows what he saw.
At that moment I was a bit frightened, but then peace came upon me. And what I saw was real black night, the darkness of night.
The darkness, but also the light of Christ.
And there were thousands of little white dots. Little lights, and I tried to look under each light to read the bibliography of the soul, because I knew each light was a soul.
He writes about 5 visions, including Revelation.
Then I saw 3 beautiful white tulips, perfect white tulips, representing probably the Trinity. The Bible writes about the book of life, and this is what I was being shown, the book of life. I lifted up through the bed, I went up through the ceiling, and I remember trying to turn to say goodbye to my wife, but I couldn't.
There's a vision of perseverance through the valley of the shadow of death.
I think the most dramatic point was crawling through the valley of the shadow of death. I was very aware that I was crawling, and I was very aware that I was paralyzed.
The crawling came from his experience as a Royal Marine.
And I know that was related to the near-death I had with scuba diving in 1975, where I drowned, and I knew I was trying to get out of the water and I couldn't.
Father Mumford says in the valley of death he did not fear because he knew God was with him, and he kept crawling until he saw Jesus. Nothing said.
But here's the thing, as I was crawling along, giving up, I remember looking up and seeing Jesus on the cross. And he didn't say anything. He had his head dropped and he was moving his eyes. He was like pulling me along. He said like this. He was just keep going.
Mumford thinks Jesus was telling him to follow him and keep going. Father Nigel's healing ministry, now 34 years in the making, to heal the sick in a quiet, gentle, non-demonstrative way. We had to ask, what about those who are skeptical of his visions and his experiences?
You have choice to believe or not. I know what I saw, I know what I experienced. I know I was in a coma. Was it drug-induced? You could say it was. Probably was, I don't know. But I know what I saw, and it was all biblical.
No flatline for Nigel Mumford. He says, thanks to the grace of God, he lives. In Virginia Beach, Andy Fox, 10 on your side.